From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight,
Bimbo Oloyede.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Goodluck Jonathan seeks extension of emergency rule in the Northeast by another 6 months. 54 girls identified by parents of the abducted Chibok students. Mother of a Nigerian student murdered in Dubai alleges foul play, demands justice. And Ukraine prepares for its crucial presidential election holding on May 25th.
On Business News tonight, Nigeria's external reserve reduces by 0.48% to $37.95 billion.
And on Sports News tonight, harvest of goals and display of football artistry as the Lagos preliminaries of the Channels National Kids Cup gets underway.
The President is seeking the approval of the Senate for an extension of emergency rule in Borno, Adamawa and Yobe states for another 6 months. In a letter addressed to the Senate President, President Goodluck Jonathan said that while substantial progress has been made to contain insecurity and restore normalcy in the 3 affected states, the security situation that necessitated the emergency rule was yet to abate. This is the second time the President is seeking an extension of emergency rule in the 3 states. President Jonathan first proclaimed the state of emergency in May 2013, but the emergency rule was later extended in November. President Jonathan had hinted during his last presidential media chat on May the 4th that the emergency rule would be extended. He said the emergency rule was necessary for soldiers to effectively tackle the insurgency in the region. Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe are 3 of the states most affected by the Boko Haram insurgency.
It will be recalled that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria had, upon consideration of the realities of the security situation in the affected states that had been placed before it, graciously approved by resolution the extension of the state of emergency for a further term of 6 months from the date of expiration of the subsisting period. Distinguished senators, the security situation in the 3 states remained daunting, albeit to varying degrees, in the face of persistent attacks by members of the Boko Haram sect on civilian and military targets with alarming casualty rates. In view of the foregoing, I most respectfully request distinguished senators to consider and approve by resolution the extension of the proclamation of the state of emergency in Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe states by a further term of 6 months from the date of expiration of the current term.
In the meantime, the House of Representatives is to decide tomorrow whether to approve a second state of emergency extension request by President Goodluck Jonathan for Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states. The House met today to debate the matter after President Goodluck Jonathan sent a letter to lawmakers seeking for the extension. President Jonathan's letter was read to members by the Speaker, Mr. Aminu Tambuwal. The Speaker says due to the urgency in the letter, he has directed the Committee on Rules and Business to bring it forward for consideration tomorrow. The President recalled that he was compelled last year to extend the first emergency period because the security situation of the 3 states was still precarious. Members of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign resumed their call for the release of the Chibok schoolgirls today. The group marched through the streets of Abuja and converged on the Borno State Government Lodge. The Borno State Governor told the group that 54 girls have already been identified in the video clip released by the leader of Boko Haram, Abubakar Shekau.
We are saying,
Nigerians, asking the government to rescue students of Government Secondary School Chibok, abducted 29 days ago. They are getting set to take their protest to Borno State Governor.
All we are saying, bring back our girls now and alive.
After a march through the streets of Asokoro, they finally got to the Borno State Governor's Lodge. They told the governor the purpose of the visit.
We in the Abuja family of this global campaign kindly seek the opportunity of a meeting with you. The objectives of the meeting will be to enable us to have as much information as possible on your role as the governor of the state regarding the safety of the school from which the girls were abducted. To understand what you have done so far in collaboration with the federal government to secure the release of the girls, and your assessment of the counter-insurgency efforts. We thank you and look forward to an enriching engagement.
The meeting was also interactive, as members of the Bring Back Our Girls group sought explanations on some issues. Governor Kashim Shettima assured them of his efforts to rescue the girls. He announced that 54 girls have been identified in the video released by the Islamic sect, Boko Haram.
They have so far identified 54 of the girls in that video. But it's an ongoing kind of a thing, and they might likely identify more of those students. It's an exercise that is currently going on in the government house in Maiduguri. I'm quite glad that the Americans have shown a keen interest, so also as the British, the French, the Chinese, and I believe collectively. Maybe as the president said, this might be the turning point. We have reached the tipping point, and I believe going forward, we shall have an enduring peace in that part of the world.
The campaign for the safe return of the abducted girls continues. Members of the group promised to push for concrete efforts to rescue the abducted girls.
What's our single issue?
Bring back our girls now and alive.
Well, the federal government seems ready to talk to Islamist militants Boko Haram for the release of more than 200 abducted schoolgirls. The Minister of Special Duties, Tanimu Turaki, said that if Shekau is sincere, he should send representatives for talks. The girls were abducted last month from a school in northeastern Nigeria. Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau said on Monday that captured girls who have not converted to Islam can be swapped for jailed fighters. Interior Minister Abba Moro yesterday dismissed Boko Haram's offer to swap the abducted schoolgirls, saying it was absurd. A video emerged on Monday showing about 130 of the girls reciting Quranic verses. Mr. Turaki, who is chairman of a committee set up by President Goodluck Jonathan to find ways of reconciling with Boko Haram, said that Mr. Shekau should send people he trusts to meet the Standing Committee on Reconciliation. And a Kaduna-based human rights activist, Mr. Shehu Sani, has asked the federal government to negotiate with the Boko Haram leadership to end the insecurity in the northeast. Mr. Sani said today that it would do no one any good to use force against members of the Islamist sect.
The federal government should accept the offer made by this insurgent group in the best interest of resolving this violence, and also as the best way to rescue these girls and return them back home alive. We need these girls back home alive. We just don't need the body of these girls. The federal government should immediately constitute a team that will reach out to the insurgents. And this team should include some respected northern Islamic clerics and also some of the insurgents that are in detention. And then we can have some representation by some persons who should serve as observers. Now, this team will reach out to the insurgents and open a channel of communication and work out the technical details of getting these girls out. All the dialogue committees that were set up by government were nowhere because the members of that committee do not have the trust and the reach out and the communication link to which they can bring the genuine groups. So that is why when the government set up its 26-member panel and I was invited, I looked at the membership of that committee and I saw a government minister as the chairman of that committee, and I knew very well that that group is not going to listen to them. And I declined to serve in that committee when my name was among those appointed. For the very fact that, first of all, I have to contact the group through sources and ask them whether they have interest in me participating in this dialogue, whether they will cooperate with the committee, and they told me they won't. They will not, because on first and second occasions, we invited them to talk with the government, and that talk was frustrated by some elements within the circle of Mr. President.
Meanwhile, U.S. surveillance aircraft are flying over remote areas of the northeast Nigeria as part of an international hunt for about 200 girls kidnapped a month ago by Boko Haram militants who stormed their school. The U.S. State Department said Washington had sent military, law enforcement and development experts to Nigeria to help search for the missing girls. A U.S. official told Reuters news agency that the U.S. had shared commercial satellite imagery with Nigeria and are flying manned intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance (ISR) assets over Nigeria with the government's permission. U.S. State Department spokesman Jen Psaki said U.S. teams on the ground are digging in on the search and coordinating closely with the Nigerian government as well as international partners and allies. Thousands of Nigerian troops have been sent to the region, while the United States and Britain also have teams on the ground to help with the search. Well, the volume of voices clamoring for the release of the abducted Chibok schoolgirls is getting louder and louder. This time, the wife of the governor of Anambra State, Mrs. Ebele Obiano, has gathered mothers and students to pray for the release of the girls at her country home in Aguleri, Anambra East local government area. Meanwhile, in neighboring Imo State, the Christian Association of Nigeria and the Imo Women Alliance also joined forces to seek divine intervention for their release and safe return to their families.
The number of people enlisting in the campaign to free the abducted students of the government girls' secondary school Chibok, Borno State keeps increasing by the day. Inside this hall in Aguleri, Anambra State, the wife of the state governor, Ebele Obiano, puts together this assembly of mothers and students to pray for divine intervention in the matter. After the session, Mrs. Obiano praised the efforts of the federal government and the international community and encouraged Nigerians to stand by the girls and their families.
What I'm appealing to our women to do is to help with prayers. We've seen demonstrations, people carried placards, people were angry that it's taking so long. So since we've done everything humanly possible, all we need to do is to call on the Alpha and Omega. And that's what I'm asking our women to do now. Because with prayers, everything is possible.
Our girls are already out to do.
And in Owerri, the Imo State capital, the Christian Association of Nigeria and Imo Women Alliance organized this session of fasting and prayers, seeking the face of God for the safe return of the girls.
The abduction of these girls may signal the next phase of the abominable Boko Haram activities, recruiting girls and brainwashing them for more terrorist activities. But we say God forbid.
Bring back our girls is no longer the slogan associated with the parents of the Chibok girls alone, but that of the entire world, going by the way it is resonating across the globe. And until the girls are released and returned safely, this campaign will definitely get bigger and louder.
In part 2, after the break, Bayelsa Governor pays visit to Channels Television, speaks about investment opportunities in the state. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.